From the gold rush era until the 1920s, horse-drawn coaches were the prime means of public transport throughout Australia's colonies. Cobb Co is without a doubt the best known today. The gold rushes in Victoria and New South Wales saw a huge expansion of coach services, conveying passengers, goods and mail to and from the main cities, towns and ports. As settlers moved farther inland, there was an influx of new immigrants, hopeful miners, tradesmen, shearers, labourers, squatters and their families, who all needed transport to the ever-expanding towns and stations out in the country. Country folk relied on Cobb Co for parcels and mail deliveries. The coaches and services became a lifeline to the many isolated communities in rural Australia. Cobb Co was far from the first such company in Australia, as many carriers operated goods and mail services for decades earlier. However, it was the gold discoveries at Ballarat and Bendigo in Victoria, and then at Bathurst in New South Wales, that saw a huge demand for coach services, which spread far out into the country, primarily to the goldfields, but then to service the sheep and cattle hubs as the country continued to grow. It was in 1850 that the American Freeman Cobb went to Melbourne to set up a freight service for the US Adams Express Freight Company. Adams Express had made a small fortune for its owners on the Californian gold rush. However, the situation in Australia's colony was very different to the west coast of the USA. Town planning and infrastructure was almost non-existent, and roads were haphazard and regularly impassable in the wet. So, joined by James Peck, James Swanton and John Lambert, Freeman Cobb started business with a run from Port Melbourne to Melbourne town in July of 1853. This was soon abandoned because of the impassable, deep and muddy track in Melbourne's unpredictable weather. Early the next year, in January of 1854, they commenced a service from Melbourne to the Castlemaine diggings, and the company was named Cobb Co. Not long afterwards, the regular service was extended to Bendigo, which was a rapidly growing gold mining centre with expanding support infrastructure. Their Concord coaches were imported from the United States, built in Concord, New Hampshire. Leather strap suspension suited Australia's conditions and gave a reasonably comfortable ride. Cobb Co coaches were renowned for a better ride than their competition. They were faster over the same routes and left at specified times. Many other services left when coaches were full, causing hours of delay for some passengers. This helped Cobb Co to gain a good reputation with regular travellers and customers. Freeman Cobb sold his share in the business in 1856 and returned to America. He left Australia with a legacy that even in more recent times has seen bus companies use the name of Cobb Co. Cobb Co expanded farther afield, and in 1861 new owners acquired the company. With James Rutherford, another American at the helm, the company was profitable and continued to grow for decades, expanding into New South Wales and Queensland. Goods, parcel and mail contracts were an important part of the business, and by 1870 their routes crisscrossed the East Coast colonies. It was reported that Cobb Co travelled 28,000 miles every week and harnessed up some 6,000 horses each day. In Queensland, the first Cobb Co service was from Brisbane to Toowoomba in 1866. An announcement appeared as an advertisement in Brisbane's newspaper The Courier on New Year's Day. Company headquarters were in Albert Street, Brisbane, although the building was destroyed by fire not long afterwards. So new offices were set up at 71 Albert Street. Coach building and larger offices were established at Petrie Bight by 1881, while the coach building facilities were transferred to Charleville 5 years later. Queensland claims fame to the final Cobb Co horse-drawn coach run in Australia, a mail service from Surat to Yuleba on Thursday, the 14th of August 1924. By this time, Cobb Co had expanded its services to motor transport. However, boggy road conditions on the track from Surat meant that the Royal Mail could not get through. So a horse team was hitched up and their mail contract honoured with the delivery from St George to Yuleba. This run again was typical of the reason why Cobb Co had earned an enviable reputation for on-time delivery of its parcel and mail services. Mail sacks were regular companions to passengers on coach runs, especially when the coaches were fully loaded. When no seats were left, an option often offered was to take up the mailbag and place it on some passenger's lap, usually the passenger who had boarded the coach last and taken the space where the mailbags would be. Some Cobb Co services after 1912 used both horse-drawn and motor transport, sometimes running parallel. In 1917, a one-way ticket from Longreach to Wyndham cost £3 by car or £2 by coach. Motor vehicles were faster and express service, whereas horse-drawn coaches made frequent stops for passengers and the conveyance of mail. Boggy roads could cause cancellation of motor services, whereas the horses could get through most times. When a coach became bogged, passengers had to get down from the coach and help it get underway again. Not a pleasant task for them at all.
Cobb Co, with the coach that bears the name of Cobb Co.